Padmé Amidala's survival during the events that led to the rise of the Galactic Empire represents a compelling alternative history within the Star Wars saga. If Padmé had lived beyond the catastrophic collapse of the Galactic Republic, her presence could have become a beacon of resistance and reform within the Imperial system. Her influence, far from diminishing, would likely have reverberated across Coruscant and the wider galaxy, posing a significant challenge to Emperor Palpatine's authoritarian grip. In this timeline, Padmé's survival is intrinsically linked to a slightly altered chain of events during the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker's fall. Whether through medical intervention, the Force, or sheer willpower driven by her unborn children, Padmé does not succumb to the physical and emotional trauma of her confrontation with Anakin on Mustafar. Although grievously wounded, she manages to survive, retreating into obscurity temporarily as the galaxy transforms under the shadow of the new Empire. The survival of Padmé Amidala introduces an enduring and dynamic tension into the burgeoning empire. Having been a staunch defender of democracy and justice throughout her career, she would find herself at odds with the central tenets of the imperial system. Yet, the strategic and pragmatic side of Padmé would recognize the futility of direct confrontation. Instead, she would bide her time, carefully crafting a role that allowed her to re-enter the public sphere as a member of the newly formed Imperial Senate. This choice, calculated and fraught with moral complexity, would set the stage for her to resist the Empire from within. Padmé's initial reemergence would likely be met with mixed reactions. To many, she had been presumed dead following the dramatic downfall of the Republic, and her sudden return would be shrouded in mystery. Imperial propaganda might frame her as a redeemed supporter of the New Order, a narrative designed to undermine her credibility among former allies. Padmé, however, would use this ambiguity to her advantage, navigating the treacherous political waters of the Senate with the same eloquence and resolve that had once defined her as Queen of Naboo and later as a Senator of the Republic. Within the Imperial Senate, Padmé would face formidable challenges. The institution, though nominally a continuation of the Republic's legislative body, had been reduced to a rubber-stamp assembly under Palpatine's authoritarian rule. Senators who opposed the Empire risked imprisonment, assassination, or worse. Padmé, aware of these dangers, would tread carefully, using her reputation and political acumen to gather allies and sow the seeds of dissent. Her efforts would likely focus on rallying like-minded senators, advocating for reforms that preserved remnants of the Republic's ideals, and covertly supporting resistance movements operating in the shadows. The dynamic between Padmé and Emperor Palpatine would become a central aspect of this alternate narrative. Palpatine, ever the master manipulator, would recognize the threat Padmé posed but might also see value in keeping her alive as a symbol of the Empire's supposed tolerance. He would likely attempt to co-opt her influence, perhaps offering her positions of power or appealing to her desire for stability to dissuade her from undermining his rule. Padmé, however, would remain steadfast in her resistance, countering Palpatine's overtures with subtle defiance. An intriguing element of this scenario would be Padmé's relationship with her children, Luke and Leia. Raised in secrecy to protect them from the Emperor's grasp and their father's dark shadow, Padmé's knowledge of their existence would shape her actions profoundly. Her maternal instincts and enduring hope for a better future would drive her efforts, even as she struggled with the knowledge of Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader. The eventual revelation of their parentage would create a deeply emotional and politically volatile situation, as Padmé's dual roles as mother and senator intersected with the larger struggle against the Empire. Padmé's survival would also alter the trajectory of the Rebel Alliance. Her presence, both as a symbol and an active participant, could galvanize disparate factions and accelerate the alliance's formation. Her experience and network of contacts from her time as queen and senator would provide invaluable resources, while her moral authority would inspire others to join the cause. However, her involvement would come at great personal cost. Padmé's position in the Senate would expose her to constant surveillance and threats, forcing her to make difficult choices and sacrifices to protect both her mission and her children. The interplay between Padmé and Vader would add another layer of complexity to this alternate history. Anakin's transformation into the Sith Lord had been driven in part by his desire to protect Padmé, and her survival would rekindle conflicting emotions within him. Encounters between Padmé and Vader, fraught with tension and tragedy, could offer moments of potential redemption for Anakin, as well as opportunities for Padmé to confront him about the atrocities he committed. These interactions would deepen the narrative, highlighting the enduring humanity within both characters even as they stood on opposite sides of the galactic conflict. Padmé's position in the Imperial Senate would also become a flashpoint for hidden resistance activities. While outwardly navigating the constraints of her political role, she would covertly use her platform to influence policy in ways that weakened the Empire's grip. She might advocate for humanitarian initiatives, exploit bureaucratic loopholes, and pass coded messages to resistance cells, all while maintaining a facade of loyalty to the system she opposed. This dual existence would make her a master of subterfuge, evading the watchful eyes of Palpatine's agents and sowing rebellion from within the heart of the Empire. Her efforts would also attract a coalition of senators disillusioned by the Empire's tyranny. Figures like Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, who already opposed the regime, would find in Padmé an invaluable ally. With her credibility as a former advocate of peace and democracy, she could serve as a unifying figure for the rebellion. Unlike the typical revolutionary leader, Padmé's approach would be more nuanced, focused on strategic alliances and long-term survival rather than outright defiance. This strategy would allow the rebellion to grow in strength while avoiding premature exposure to the Empire's crushing retaliation. As Padmé's influence within the Senate grew, so too would the danger she faced. Palpatine's tolerance for her presence, however calculated, would not be infinite. He would deploy subtle and overt methods to discredit, intimidate, or eliminate her. Agents of the Empire might fabricate scandals, spread rumors, or orchestrate accidents to undermine her standing. Yet Padmé, fortified by her determination and resourcefulness, would counter these tactics with resilience, turning every attempt at suppression into an opportunity to expose the Empire's brutality. Padmé's survival would also profoundly affect the galaxy's perception of the Empire. As one of the few figures who had publicly opposed the transition from Republic to Empire, her continued activism would serve as a reminder of what had been lost. Her speeches, laced with veiled critiques of the regime, would resonate with both senators and citizens longing for freedom. These speeches, carefully worded to avoid outright treason, would plant seeds of doubt even among those who had initially supported the Empire, eroding its veneer of legitimacy. The interplay between Padmé and Darth Vader would reach its emotional and thematic peak during this era. Vader, torn between his loyalty to Palpatine and the remnants of Anakin Skywalker within him, would be drawn to Padmé like a moth to a flame. Their encounters, charged with unresolved emotions, would test the boundaries of both characters. Padmé, still seeing glimpses of Anakin in Vader, would attempt to reach him, appealing to the love they once shared and the humanity she believed was not entirely extinguished. Vader, meanwhile, would oscillate between moments of vulnerability and the cold detachment demanded by his Sith identity. These interactions could lead to pivotal moments of introspection for Vader, hinting at the eventual redemption arc that would unfold in the original timeline. Padmé's unwavering belief in the possibility of redemption, despite everything Anakin had done, would be both her greatest strength and her Achilles heel. While it might inspire hope in others, it would also expose her to devastating risks, as Vader's inner conflict could easily manifest as fury rather than reconciliation. Padmé's influence on her children, even indirectly, would shape the destiny of the galaxy. While Luke and Leia would still grow up apart, their mother's survival might afford them fleeting connections, whether through coded messages, whispered stories, or clandestine visits facilitated by trusted allies like Bail Organa. These moments, however brief, would imbue the twins with a deep sense of purpose and a connection to their heritage. Leia, in particular, would inherit her mother's political acumen and indomitable spirit, qualities that would later define her leadership in the Rebel Alliance. The culmination of Padmé's journey would likely occur at a critical juncture in the rebellion's struggle against the Empire. Whether through a dramatic speech exposing Palpatine's atrocities, a daring act of defiance within the Senate, or a self-sacrificial moment to protect her children, Padmé's actions would leave an indelible mark on galactic history. Her death, if it came at such a moment, would not be in vain but would serve as a rallying cry for freedom. Alternatively, If she survived long enough to witness the rebellion's triumph, her role as a founding figure would solidify her legacy as one of the galaxy's greatest champions of democracy and justice. Padmé's survival would also fundamentally alter the emotional stakes of the Star Wars narrative. Her presence would underscore the theme of hope, demonstrating that even in the darkest times, individuals can make a difference. Her journey, from a queen fighting for her people to a senator resisting a tyrannical empire, would embody the enduring struggle for liberty against oppression. By staying true to her principles while navigating an increasingly hostile galaxy, Padmé would exemplify the resilience of the human spirit. In the end, the story of Padmé Amidala surviving and playing a role in the Imperial Senate would be a tale of quiet rebellion, moral courage, and enduring hope. It would not only reshape the trajectory of the Star Wars saga but also provide a poignant exploration of how one person, armed with conviction and compassion, can challenge the mightiest of empires and inspire a galaxy to dream of freedom once more.